This is Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments with Shelby Joe Long, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Shelby Joe Long.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ep53 podcast. I like this podcast because we have the opportunity to talk to some entrepreneurs that have started businesses from their expertise. We use this as a way to inspire you to think about your expertise in a different way and maybe to make your own business out of that and maybe to have something that is yours and that uses your intellectual property. And today I have the opportunity to introduce to you Chris Anderson. And Chris and I met about a year ago in this quest and journey of entrepreneurship. And we made some connections and we've worked together a little bit. And he's introduced me to this amazing piece of expertise that he has under the umbrella of this larger pencil leadership that he does. And I'm excited to talk to him today because it's an opportunity for us to talk about how synergistic our offers are. I help people try to monetize their expertise in a way through a high-ticket coaching program or courses. And Chris's piece is really connected to that because he helps people podcast. He helps people step into their leadership roles. So I'm very excited to have a conversation with Chris today. So Chris, welcome to the Ep53 podcast.
Hey, Shelby, thanks so much for having me on.
And Chris just has the best radio voice. So I'm even
I appreciate that.
I'm even more excited about that. So Chris, I have introduced you, but I'm sure there are many other pieces to pencil leadership and the podcast piece that you do. So if you could just introduce yourself to the audience, that would be great.
Sure. So Chris Anderson, just guy from Indiana, middle of cornfields, chickens in the backyard. So nothing special here, just, country boy, born and raised, but wanted something different from life. And that's what kind of started Pencil Leadership. I wanted to make a bigger impact, leave a bigger mark on the world. And so started that podcast and knew I wanted a business from it because of the freedom, no ceiling, no limits really to it all. And then eventually narrowed in to podcasters. And that's where the Zero to Podcast Hero programs fall within Pencil Leadership. So helping people launch, grow and monetize their show. And then we also do production because podcasting is just such a great medium, just being able to, especially when you do video podcasts, be able to market, to be able to get your message and expertise out to the world globally. And it's been an amazing ride to have Pencil Leadership in the top 5% listen to globally shows and just be able to help people. And Pencil Leadership, our community is for side hustlers and podcasters who are kind of, in the beginning stages, trying to, figure out what they're doing and how to grow their thing so it can become their full-time kind of gig or lifestyle, kind of like what it's done for me. So it's a high level of what Pencil Leadership and Zero to Podcast Hero program underneath that is about.
Congratulations on having such a popular podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And it makes me feel really good about my podcast because you started it. So I'm really happy that maybe I'm on the trajectory of doing that. But that's that's some really key pieces. I want to talk about your advice to podcasters, and I want to talk about your advice to leadership people in the leadership program later. But I want to get more into your story. So I also love this medium of podcasting. I do the YouTube. I'm on YouTube and I'm on the podcast channel. And I think it's such a great medium because we can just stick in our earbuds when we're going anywhere and just listen all the time. It's such a great medium. And and a lot of people are doing it. So I want to hear more about your background. Like what made you so interested in this particular channel? So
it's funny because when I tell my story, my career I went to college for and worked for almost 7 years in was athletic training.
Right. I remember that.
And so we're like, well, how'd you do? What got you into podcasting? And then basically doing podcast consulting, coaching for side hustlers and everything. Well, I was like, well, I've always enjoyed personal development and seeing the bigger picture, what could be. And that was one big thing while I was an athletic trainer, was that really kind of stuck out and resonated with me, was I was having a lot of conversations with athletes or the industrial workers when I was in the industrial athletic training setting about their dreams and goals and aspirations outside of like the superficial thing they were doing right there, whether it be sports or school or work 9 to 5. And I really enjoyed talking with them and finding out their hobbies and their desires and passions to do something bigger and better. But then it opened up my eyes to be like, well, most people are scared or don't know how to do it or don't want to take that leap to do so. And they're missing out. And not only are they missing out on what they could do and what life could look like for them, but a lot of other people are missing out on them, on what they could bring to the table and to the world. And it's an unfortunate and a sad type of things to see so much wasted and thrown away talent and abilities out there because, you know, a lot of people just follow along with the program lifestyle of, hey, go to school, get a job, work, you know, however long, retire and hope we have enough. And so it was just that was a big wake up call for me. And then realizing that in my career, nothing against the businesses I worked for or were a part of, they were great. But I finally realized there was a ceiling there and I was only going to be able to get so high and make so much money and have so much time freedom that I said, this is it. I'm done. I'm done with this. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to build a business somehow to have that freedom and be able to make a bigger mark on the world. And so I quit my job, cold turkey. My business was not making anything. And so it was a journey. It was a trek. It was a battle, and thankful to the place I am today, being able to provide and continuing to grow and help other people kind of get the courage to take that next step and then see and understand the pieces to get to those next levels in their businesses and podcasts.
You notice this. I noticed this theme with entrepreneurs that and I have experienced this too. I'm digging into it right now with my I have this experience. There's a ceiling. I want to get to a larger audience. I want to see what else I can do and to take that step, and stopping at cold turkey and just leaving everything sounds like a very frightening thing to do. And it's, so I commend you for that.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. But it was just what I felt led to. I faced a big part of my journey and my story and my life. And, just really, truly felt called by God to do it and trust him and talked with my wife a lot and had those conversations and, you know, got to the point where we were both on the same page and went for it. And, it definitely wasn't easy, and it's still not easy. And it's what they say, new levels, new devils. So like you get to new levels and there's different difficulties that you didn't expect to happen or to come across that you have to then deal with.
Right. I love that phrase. New levels, that's absolutely true, because you grow to a certain point and you're making pretty good income. Maybe you're not going to so much debt anymore, that type of thing. And then you have to think about how you get to the next level. And then, I mean, it just keeps evolving. I think that's the path of entrepreneurship. Not to sound cliche, but it's a journey, not a destination, for sure.
Absolutely. So. And that's something I had to realize was, even with podcasting, with building the business, I need to enjoy right now. I need to enjoy where I am now, do the right things, and the results will come. And that was hard for me because I'm very systematic, very process oriented, very technical, okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and this will happen. We'll be able to see this result. And with entrepreneurship,
your background, right?
Yeah, exactly. But entrepreneurship, you don't always see that. You do X, Y, Z, and then you start again, A, B, C, D, and then you still don't always see results. And same with podcasting. You do all the right things. You create the great show, great content. You connect with your audience. And if you stare at the download numbers too much, you're going to get really discouraged because it's going to be a slower you got to get the gears going. You got to get those wheels turning, and you're going to be pushing uphill until you get to certain levels, and then it's going to be a little bit easier. And then you're going to hit another incline, which is good because you have to take the incline to get higher, but you're going to have to get a little bit more oomph behind it.
Right.
And it's, you just have to be ready for no results quickly.
Right. Which is not what people want to hear when
it's true. There is no shortcuts. There's no, overnight successes. There's none of that. And if that's what you want, and that's what a lot of podcasters, what a lot of people with side hustles, they get to that wall of, this isn't happening quick enough. This isn't happening quickly. I'm not getting thousands of dollars, my first couple months. I literally just had a conversation with someone the other day. They were asking me some questions about building their business and podcasts and things. So we're going back and forth, talking, chatting, answering questions, giving guidance. And he was like, and I'm always transparent and as honest as I can be. I said, it's simple. It's simple. You don't have to do a whole lot, but you have to do the right things enough. It's just hard work. And you're just going to have to, do those dirty reps. And he said, well, I'll give it a couple months with my side hustle. And after a couple months, if it's not where I need it to be, then I'll just do an ordinary job. And I said, I'm going to be real blunt and honest with you. I said, if you're only going to give it a couple months, don't even give it a couple months. Like, don't, because you're going to waste time, because you're going to get discouraged after a couple months. It's not going to be where you want it to be, most likely. I said, so you might just want to stick with your ordinary job until you have the mindset of, I'm going to do everything I can, but this is probably going to be a little bit longer term game to play. Because if you're thinking in 2 months that you're going to, be at certain levels, I mean, it can happen. It can happen if you do everything right and you get a little bit lucky too, it can happen. So I don't want to discourage people, but you've got to have the mindset of, people, they underestimate what they can do long-term and overestimate what they'll do short-term. So they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be Joe Rogan in 6 months. And it's like, you might be doing, I mean, you should be able to do decent in 6 months, but to that level, it's going to take a little bit more time. So right. That's the mindset you got to go out with.
You have very much a coaching mentality, right? You want to, I just remember working with you about a year ago, and you just put together all my podcast things so quickly. But then that's the technical piece of it, but there's really which I think your program speaks to, and it speaks to the broader leadership piece is like, is articulating your message and making sure your message is consistent, making sure there's certain things that you add into the podcast. And so I think the coaching piece is I told you this from the very beginning. I think that's your bread and butter, right? And that's why, I mean, when we narrowed into the Zero Podcast Hero stuff, it was that direct, target market, help them with specific problems, launching and then growing, monetize. And then with the Pencil Leadership, the community we've built, that's brand new. I wanted that to be the lower ticket thing, the thing that we could help a lot of people with the fundamentals, and bring a lot of value there. Because just from my journey, knowing the things that I know now, that I was like, I wish I would have had this just in one place where I wouldn't have to do anything else, find all these other coaches or things like that. They would all be in one place. And that's what I've been bringing experts into this community to train on these different topics. So it's all there for a low investment. I was like, because my mark for Pencil Leadership is I wanted to help so many people get results. And I thought that would be the way to do it. But first it started by narrowing in, and really dialing into a specific group. But then you can create a community around that to make a piece of
But I had to wait. That was the thing. And it's something I had to learn. So many trial and errors that I had to do and go through is not trying to do everything at once, focusing on one thing, getting that to a certain point, and then adding just a little bit new thing, because it adds up, especially if you're still in a 9-to-5, you have a family, you have animals, like whatever it is, the time commitment, you don't want to overextend, because then you get stressed and then it kind of crumbles. So getting really good at one thing And then slowly adding little things on into your funnel, into your, client journey that complements what you're already doing.
Right.
And then it just kind of builds from there.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere, but then you got to make sure that you either like continue with that or you pivot and adjust and see what takes place in the market. Cause I mean, the other kind of interesting thing, I don't know what, I've never asked you when you started doing this, but I launched my program like May 4th last year. May the 4th be with you. Like right after the pandemic. And that was a pretty tough time to launch a business, because nobody's spending money and nobody's going. And it was an online business, but it was still, the mentality was really challenging to deal with it. You can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you're not connecting with your audience, or it has to do with timing. And so you've got to kind of keep with that. Did you experience some of that with the pandemic piece too?
Yeah. I mean, I quit my job April 2020. So, and I was, so I had no income, and all I had was, I know this is going to work. And now what do I need to do? Pieces. And I mean, I went through bad coaches who didn't do anything but take my money. I went through just my own ego that I had to get out of the way, all of it. That everyone has probably went through, imposter syndrome, all the, things, and finally narrowing into the podcasting stuff. That's when it clicked. When I narrowed down, and Shelby, I was you who told me, being specific prints money. I still remember that on one of our calls, and I still use that and tell people that today, that I learned that from you. And it's true. Once I narrowed into the podcasting market and brought my expertise and solved the problem, income came to me and continues to do that. And that's now why I'm doing the Pencil Leadership Community, because I knew where I started. And if I could find a community at that under $50 a month to learn everything that I needed to get me to where I am now, I would have got there a lot quicker.
Right.
But it started with narrowing into a certain market.
Yeah. Specificity prints money. That's a big, I learned that from one of my coaches. That's it's so true, because if you solve a problem for somebody, will pay for that. Like, when our car's broken, where do we go? The mechanic.
Exactly.
Hopefully they solve your problem after a few $1,000, but people pay to have their problems being solved. So
that, or they don't want to do it, or whatever it is. That's why we offer how to launch, because people don't know how to do it. That's why we do production, because people don't want to do it. And so they all fit within the same thing. And so you just have to know your market. You have to know your audience and what they need or want, or what they don't want to do. And that's how you can build something to utilize your show and business for.
Sure. So what can you talk about your market a little bit? Who do you primarily work with? Do you work with more coaches or leaders?
So right now we're obviously still focusing in the podcasting area, but leaning towards coaches. So podcasting coaches, life, fitness, majority of, just because my background's health and wellness, and then podcasting. I like what life coaches are about. So we focus mainly on those, with the podcasting program, with the Zero to Podcast Hero program. But as far as the Pencil Leadership Community, we've expanded into people with side hustles and podcasting entrepreneurs. So it's a little bit more broad. So the marketing will be a little bit harder, but with the value and what problems we can solve. Because on the journey of podcasting, even if people don't want it to be a business, you still have to look at it from a business perspective, because you want to grow an audience. So it's the same kind of thing. And you have to come with a message to that audience that they want to hear, even if you're not selling anything. And so with the Pencil Leadership Community, it's everyone can learn the right steps to grow whatever they're doing. It's just, hey, do you want to learn how to monetize? Well, we're going to talk about that with this expert, or with this live, this Q&A session, whatever it is. So we broadened a little bit just because the message resonates with different demographics.
Well, and I think your message is your message isn't necessarily for a certain clientele. It's for
Right.
people who want to do something with their message.
Yeah. Like we say at Pencil Leadership, build a life you love.
Right.
So whatever that looks like, most people with side hustles are trying to do something, travel more, have more freedom, quit their job. And so that's what we want to provide through the community there with the education, with the trainings, with the resources. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you do all of your education and trainings and all that through the podcast platform?
So for the Pencil Leadership community, we have the podcast, obviously, with the guests I interview, that they can learn from, but then we will, in the community itself, we set up Zoom calls with experts that come in and train for an hour to 2 hours on a specific topic, and get deep in there with actionable items. And then there's a Q&A at the end. So people who are on the Zoom call listening can ask questions and get more in depth from what would probably cost hundreds of dollars from these experts, if not thousands. They get it for the monthly investment. We do wellness checkups, wellness Wednesdays, networking events. I do Q&A sessions. And then we're going to be starting a book club eventually, and challenges, things like that, just to get people results and get them to the next level as quick as possible.
Yeah, that sounds great. What's your goal for that, to build that community?
There's all, I mean, you can have revenue goals, you have membership goals.
Right.
My goal is just to get people their results, that they're seeking, the best we can, and as quick as we can get it for them. That's my real goal. I mean, I would love to have, hundreds and hundreds of people in there, as long as they're getting results. That's what matters to me, is really getting them those results. So
as long as they're moving
Yeah.
forward, not backwards.
Yeah, because if I'm leaving a positive mark on them and they're able to go out and leave their positive mark, it just expedites that ripple of changing the world in a positive way. So
right. So admirable that it's such a, what would you say? I do a lot with core values, and what would you say kind of at the core values of you bring experts in to bring again, what we do is so similar with the experts and monetizing their expertise, but what would you say, what values did you build that business around, your coaching model around?
Yeah, the big part, it's a couple different things. So Pencil Leadership itself is made up of 5 parables. So it's built around those, and it's built around what I call the 3 pillars of success, which is health, wealth, and success. So obviously personal, yourself, you got to lead yourself, then building a business, and then success, getting results. But Pencil Leadership is you have to be held to leave a mark. So you have to humble yourself, have a mentor. You're going to go through sharpenings. They're going to take part of your way. They're going to hurt, but they're going to make you more efficient if you can see that in the moments. You have an eraser because you're going to make mistakes. You just got to learn quickly from them and try to fix the ones you can. The lead on the inside is what leaves the mark, and that's the most important thing. So you have to worry about your integrity, your character, how you present yourself in your messaging. And then the 5th, that was 4, right? Held, point, sharpened, eraser, lead. Yeah, the 5th is that, a pencil is not a pen, and it's not a paintbrush. It can't write with ink and be real smooth and leave dark writing. And it's not a paintbrush. You can't paint with beautiful colors and do all those type projects. But a pencil can write on many different surfaces that those can't, and it can do shading, and it can do all sorts of things, specifically how it's created to do. And we're all the same. We all have different, unique abilities, and we can all leave a positive mark on our surfaces, on the influence or the circles of influence we have, and on the world. And so to lean into that and not shy away from it is the 5th. So those are kind of what it's built on.
Very cool. Have you written a book yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, you got lots of connections in the publisher community.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. There's a couple floating around, a couple up there, at least floating around in the old noggin. So got a couple ideas for them. So
that's something to definitely copyright, right? That's your idea, your intellectual property. And I think that's a really cool space about the podcast space too, and YouTube, is that that's where you can get your ideas out, because if you don't get your ideas out and you don't test your ideas, you're not going to know if people are going to respond to them. So I think I think there's, for me, the podcasting is a place to learn, but it's also a place to put those ideas out there and get that response, because that feedback loop is so critical when it comes to building businesses.
Yeah. Cause when I started Pencil Leadership, it was, it was a hope. Like it was, what is Pencil Leadership? What's that mean? Like, so it was something that had to be explained. And that, again, if I would have been a lot more specific on what my show was, entrepreneurship development or grow your side hustle, something that when people saw it, they're like, oh, I know exactly what the show is. It would have grown even faster than what Pencil Leadership did. But I wanted it to mean something. I wanted it to have weight behind the title, that one day people are like, oh yeah, Pencil Leadership. Have you heard that? The parable. And so it did take a lot of explaining. I've explained it quite a few times, and I've created a YouTube video for it. Which I love sharing it anyways, but it's been a good resonating response from people when I do share it or when they watch the video, which makes me feel the extra work I have to do to get the name out there and explain it is worth it based on people's responses.
Absolutely. I was going to say, if you don't already have a webinar or YouTube or podcast, but I'm sure you have a podcast about it too to introduce.
Yeah.
You definitely need that. So,
yeah. So it's fun to be able to share and get people to hear what their responses are, because it's been mostly all really good. So
yeah, that's one thing I wanted to ask too, just in this vein of like feedback loop. That's a big part of my business, right? Like you have to test your ideas and you have to test everything before you publish it and do your program and your piece. So it's but not all the feedback is positive. So do you have an experience to talk about with a challenge that you've been with this whole path of entrepreneurship, or with articulating what Pencil Leadership is, or the podcast program? Can you talk about a challenge that you've had and maybe how you've gone past it?
Oh boy. Yeah. There's been plenty of challenges. It's the obstacle is the way, though, if you can look at it that way and figure out, okay, so how do I need to improve? How do I need to innovate? How do I need to level up? And so you try to take the criticism, the negativity with a grain of salt. Because even the negativity, they're sending you energy. It's just how you allow it to affect you. But some hard things have been like, when I first started the video aspect of things, it wasn't the best. And I was trying to take notes and read from the script. And so I was looking down and someone's like, hey, it looks like you're not even paying attention or anything. I'm like, oh, I don't want it to ever feel like that.
Right. Because
when people are watching the video, like, oh, he doesn't really care. He's like probably on his phone or something. And so I would either like explain like, hey, if I look down, just let you know, on the live streams, especially, or I just stopped using outlines and things like that. But at the beginning, it was a little bit of hit to my ego. Like, oh, I want people to like me and think I'm doing good. And so that was like early on. Outside of when you approach someone with an idea to sell, the negativity you can get, or, oh, don't try to sell me stuff, especially when you start out and your messaging's terrible and you're really attached to that result. And so you come off more pushy. At least I know I did. And it was something I learned and grew through, and can now share how not to do it even better. But so, yeah, even when I was not pushy, when I was adding value and then would share something, someone would, get upset that I sent them the link to the show or something. It's just like, whatever, no worries. Or if they didn't want to buy something, it's like, hey, that's fine. I'm here to help. And not taking it personally would be a big one along the way.
Oh, I think that's such an important lesson, because it's a lesson in sales, right? Like not everybody is going to buy what you have to offer, and that's okay.
And it's only a low percentage that buys right off the bat anyways. It's the relationship, it's the journey to get to that, to get to sell.
Yeah. But that's an extremely hard lesson to learn in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Because you're so connected to that. You're like, want it to succeed. And then once you kind of let go and be like, okay, That's okay. Maybe in a
Yeah.
couple months or whatever, that's a hard lesson to learn. So
Yeah, you gotta go through. I mean, you gotta go through so many no's because you're learning, you're tweaking your skills and narrowing your messaging. Hundreds of no's like
right.
that I've been through, and I know other people have been through thousands of no's. So it's like I still know there's gonna be a lot of no's coming up. But yeah, it's a relationship. It's just adding value, and I'm trying to get that next level of giving value, that Gary V level of giving value, or at least aim for that. But it's like I've had conversations with people from a year ago that had just now come back around and became a client, as you know, and things like that. And that's just part of it. You never know when they'll be ready, but they're going to keep watching and they're going to keep listening to you. And when they're ready, they'll be ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some very important lessons for sure. Well, Chris, I was just to kind of wrap up things. I don't want to take up too much of your time today. It's been so great to learn about your business and where it is now. And I'm just so excited to see where we both are from a year ago to where we are now. It's really exciting.
It's crazy. Yeah, it really is, like looking back on just from both of our perspectives, just the journey where it's brought us, and just thinking now, like, hey, in a year, what in the world is it going to look like then? 5 years from now, like, holy cow.
Well, I think at least in a year, in 6 months, we're going to be doing something together. That's what I feel.
Yeah. I look forward to it.
Me too. Just to kind of wrap it up, do you have any, just to speak to those experts out there that might be thinking about monetizing or having a side hustle and making a bigger impact and having influence? What would you say to them if they were thinking about doing this?
I would tell them 2 things. Go for it. Start that process, but then anchor yourself to the reason you're doing it. It can't be, I want to make more money. It can't be, I want to help people. I want to spend more time with your kids. Like those are reasons, but you got to get deeper. So just start and then get deep into why. What's going to anchor you when the stuff hits the fan, when it starts to suck, those days that you don't want to do the tasks that have to be done, that emotional reason, and think on those and write it down, post it up somewhere. So when you do get to those days, it's like, why am I doing this? You remember, and you feel those emotions all over again, because you'll be tested and you'll be, you'll feel like you're dragged through the mud some days and beat down other days. But then you have good days. You'll have those really good moments, those good conversations, those good results. And it all goes back to why you want to do this, that end goal. Right.
Oh man, that's a great piece of advice to give. And what a treat to hear about your business today. I actually have one more question. That was going to be my question for you, the podcast, this might be self-serving because I have my own podcast, but what would you say to those out there that have podcasts and how to grow their audience and how to make a bigger impact? Since you have been so successful with your own podcast, what would you say to them?
You got to get seen and you've got to make a connection. And so a couple ways to do that is just one, by engaging with your target audience. Whether it be through social media, just connecting in the comments on posts, or by messaging and just, hey, I saw you post this. That was really great. Like, it inspired me today, or thanks for liking my stuff. Thanks for commenting. Just starting that conversation. It doesn't have to be a direct, hey, yeah, go listen to my show, go buy my thing. Just, hey, I appreciate you and I appreciate what you're doing. I liked what you posted. And so start that relationship with them to get more eyes on what you're doing, and then utilize being on podcasts as a guest within the same kind of area, because you're going to get seen by audiences that are already created, and be able to bring value, help more people, help the show you're on by bringing value. And it's another free way that you can get out there. And the third way, if you really want to, do something, it's get publicity somehow, do something crazy that people share. As long as it's ethical, I don't see any problem with it. I mean, there's a guy who walks across the country with a cross and it gets people's attention and it gets shared on social media because it's different.
Right.
So, I mean, you can do things like that people then start getting invested in because they want to see the result or they want to, hear more about it. And so you just got to get seen by more people.
Sure. Got to be an influencer for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you are an influencer in your own right with Pencil Leadership and helping people put together their podcasts and coaching people through that. It's great to see how your expertise has started to influence others. So
absolutely. No. And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on today. I hope this conversation inspires our audience to think about their own expertise, to think about your own processes, to think about what problems you solve in your own lives, and think about ways to monetize that. And podcasting, putting your own course together, there's many different ways that you can do that. So I hope you were inspired today by the conversation. And I thank you again, Chris, for coming on the podcast. I'll be sure to shoot you the Zoom link and the podcast link so you can use that on your channels too. And
awesome.
It'd be great.
I appreciate it, Shelby. Thanks so much.
Thank you again. And we will talk very soon.
Sounds great.
Thanks for listening to Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments with your host, Shelby Jo Long. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.